That's Genesis. The entire book of Genesis is all laid out. What I'm going to show you is the first myth. This myth is the human life myth. And then I'm going to show you the first monomyth. Okay, right there we have it. And it is going to extend all the way up to Noah's death. I believe that the Genesis work I'm doing should be huge, but I don't know how to make it so. I'm finding the templates in there, but I'm struggling actually to show the templates. I can see them in my mind conceptually, and I need to somehow graph them out in such a way. The reason that they're hard to see is because they're nested in verbiage that is very twisted and tweaked. The templates are in there, but they're built on verbiage that is very strange. And what one has to do in order to see the template is to first be able to interpret that strange analogous verbiage, play it out in the psyche, put in the hierarchy. Lots of stuff like that has to happen. So it's not easy to see. It's very complicated. It is visible. It's viewable, but you just about have to wire your brain to see it. My name is Dan Paulson, and welcome to the video. This is what I'm obsessed with, and I've been doing for years, and I pretty much am focused on this full time now. In this video, I'm going to do my best to try and describe what I'm seeing without going into all the reasons of how I see it. I want to talk about the template a little bit without doing any interpretation and just see how that goes. Okay, the first thing that I need to do in order to get into this is to talk to you about the Bible a little bit. I've got to restructure some things in there. NRSV, period. Yes, use the NRSV Bible. The reason I say that is because it is today's modern scholar's source for accuracy. It was translated into English from the original, the oldest works possible, not from King James. King James has a lot of strange stuff. There's some things in there that aren't exactly right. A lot of people claim King James is like, oh, you just hang on to that. King James will keep you from understanding it. Get something that's plain language that can be manipulated. What I did is I found an online source that I was able to copy and paste into a Word document, and from there I had whatever you want, copy and paste. You can put it in there and then you can manipulate it. That's what I did. The first thing I want to do is take out the chapters and the verses, or at least the verses. The chapters, little modification to them. Let's take a look at why that is. The chapters and verses that we have in the Bible today were added by Stephen Langton, who was an Archbishop of Canterbury in about AD 1227. So those have only been in the Bible about 800 years. They're not originally part of it. Why would that matter to us? The reason you would want them there, as the story goes, is simply for Bible study. It's easier to find something, a chapter and verses, if you're working with somebody on it. I have a problem with that for a couple reasons. Number one, it's a storytelling culture, so I'm going to restore it the way it was. And as I did so, as I'm doing that, what I begin to notice is that there are some anomalous ways in the way that it was mixed up and chaptered and versed. Sometimes the verses aren't even at the beginning of a sentence. They could be right in the middle of critical sentences, which seems to really break up the flow. And if you go through the Bible, here's a sequence of events. Here's first sin. Here's Cain and Abel. You got Adam's descendants. You got Noah, the flood. All of those are each individual stories. It sounds like if you were reading a book, each one of those is different from each other. When we get to there's two stories in the beginning that are they're called the creation stories. And there's two of them, they vary quite considerably. However, instead of putting chapter 1 at the first one and chapter 2 at the second one, the chapter break is before the first one ends. It's like at verse 6, before day 7. And it's like, why is it accurate everywhere else except right there? Did somebody try to obscure that? The ones where the sentence, where the verse starts in the middle of a sentence someplace or at a comma. Why? Is that meant? That's a strange thing. Would you do that? Okay, here's an example right off the start. That creation, this is where it starts. Let's imagine we're listening to this and everything is in place like it is. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, 2, the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. 3, then God said, let there be light, and there was light. 4, and God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. 5. God called the light day. You know what? This works on paper. It doesn't work in a storytelling culture. It doesn't work verbally. You see the second day down there, I've already modified it. So what I'll do is I pull out all of those, yes I do, and then it looks like this one I'm done. I've got it creation, and then I've got it blocked out where the first day right there is one section. Second day, third day, on like that. Creation 1, then creation 2, then first sin, etc. And I just want to put myself in a mind state where I'm like that, little shepherd kid 4,000 years ago listening to this story. I want to hear it the way it's being told to me verbally. That's how it was intended to be. We have to imagine in order to get there. We've got to put ourselves in their shoes and more. Okay, let's look at templates. First of all, what I have right here that's Genesis, the entire book of Genesis. And it's all laid out. What I'm going to show you is the first myth. This myth is the human life myth. And that extends from Genesis 1 in the beginning all the way to, it's in chapter 6, right where it actually says, for I am sorry that I have made them. That's when God is ready to destroy things. Right before it says, but Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. Right there, but Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. That's the calling right there. That's the transition point. And then I'm going to show you the first monomyth. Okay, right there we have it. And it is going to extend all the way up to Noah's death. So it goes from when Noah is called to when Noah dies. And let's see, what do I need to do here? You know what? We need to zoom in on it and look at it closer now. This is just to kind of capture attention. I usually go from the small details out. I think I should go from the big, maybe show pictures and colors first, right? It works for me that way. Okay, so after showing the overview, what I've done here is zoom in on the two. Let's just go ahead and pull those two up. We've got our first one there, which is the human life. It's actually a template. It's held in a myth, but it's a template. And actually, here we have it held in a religion, which is, to me, a form of myth. And then the second one is a monomyth, but it's held in a template also that is a self-healing template. All right, let's take those colors down now. And what I'm going to do is identify some other things. I'm going to leave that thick black line right up there in between there in the background, just as a reminder of what's going on where the division lines are. Now what I'm going to do is identify first this right here. See that blue part pop up? There's a part of the first, you see that it is in the human life template, that there's one part in there that I cannot identify what it is for. And what I want to do is just block that out, or I'll leave it right there blue as it is right there. I don't know what that part is, and I've got other videos up that talk about that. I believe it's part of a network, story network, since there's going to be lots of monomyths. There's a structure in antiquity holding these, I see, and this might be a way to guide people. I don't know. It is not something that shows up in other creation myths or human life templates. All right, so the next thing I'm going to pop up here is take a look here. In the beginning, there are two actual what are called creation myths. It is the creation of all things. And I've got them here. The yellow on the left is the first creation myth, and then that one I've got just disappearing right there. That is the second creation myth. So I want to leave the first creation myth highlighted. So right now what we've got identified is something that I don't recognize. It's some sort of a directory. And then a creation story on the left, and then in the beginning, and then a second creation story. All right, and it feels strange to me to just tell you what I'm putting up and not explaining how I got here. But you see, I just added in another one, highlighted. What I'm going to contend, and I've got videos up on this describing how I get here, but there is, at the beginning of the first, the human life myth, there is an addition. And where we see the second myth, or the second template, actually, that is the self-healing template, there is an addition also at the beginning. Now, it's not right in the beginning, but what you have right in front of it is a calling, and then there's a second calling. So up front, you have two separate creation myths, and then at the very beginning of the self-healing path, or what is known as the monomyth, there are two separate callings and preparations, and the two that match, they simply inverted them. The one that is first in the first one goes second in the second one. Okay, look at this. First of all, let me unclutter it a little bit here. We know what's going on. And now, watch just to the right of center, and you see the yellow pop up there. That is another edition. However, it matches the other editions. So we have the yellow, the first creation story. We have the yellow, the second calling. And then there's a piece in here that, well, it's on other videos. That one is also added in. And the blue, we don't know. Okay, that's it. Here's what I'm finding on the template. It's let me take one other look at it here, a different way. You know, I think it's very easy for people to make claims and say things, and I talk about those yellow areas and think, you know what, I think they're added in. That took a lot of analysis to get to that point, but here's what I did. Watch this. If we take the first creation story and block it out, the second calling and block it out, the piece that I feel like was added in because it adds some things to it that it's a flow that doesn't work the way it is. And then the blue area, that I believe was added in as a network thing, as something that is, something that I haven't identified yet, block it out. All right, if you do that, here's what I'm going to say. If you've ever read Genesis and you've really analyzed it and you're like, well, that sounded weird, that kind of jumped, how could there be 7 there, 2 here, all of that? All of those things will disappear. It will be cohesive if you take those parts out. So that's why I think they're added in. It's like, well, let me go ahead and pull them out and see what it looks like. But you know what? You cannot see that without interpreting it. 7-day creation, you have to know what that is. It is not the creation of the world, and it's not a made-up story. It's the creation of a human, and it's setting conditions in motion that have to do with cause and effect, cycles, the emergence of things, mental hierarchy. All of those are in there, and if you don't interpret it, you wouldn't know that. Then you go into the next one and you see what they're doing and realize, okay, there's some things missing there. The template parts are there, written in such a way that it was added in to create a document that was, we can analyze that all day long. All right, before I end, let me pop up one more image here. I've scaled it again a little bit smaller. In this case, the entire human life template is on the top row and the self-healing template is on the second row. And here, this might be a better way of seeing how the yellow area in the human life template, the first creation, is there, and then you have the second creation in violet. And then in the self-healing path, you've got the calling in violet, and then a second calling in yellow. And the yellow areas match each other with numbers and other things like that. Again, other videos. And the purples match each other. And then that added in section right there. So you could just see lined up right here that on the templates, both of them have modifications at the beginning of the template, right at the beginning of the template. And they simply inverted which one starts first. But it works if you don't interpret it. Okay. You see how it's not easy to show, to explain, to figure it out. It takes a lot of poking and prodding and, analyzing things, graphing it out. You have to take it off of the paper. You can kind of start seeing the structure in your head. But you have to interpret the verse in order to find out what they are there for. That's the trick. You can't see the structure without knowing what this block of instruction really means. Well, it sounds pretty bizarre. You have to interpret it. Then the next one sounds bizarre. You have to interpret it. And only in that does it emerge as to what is there. And like I said, if you see it that way, it's like, wait a minute, as I interpret, all of a sudden, these things are starkly different. Before interpretation, they sound a little weird. After interpretation, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is like black and white in here. Something is different. It's not that extreme, but they're very contrastingly different. And even though they're getting us to the same place, their style and what they're packing in there is so different. And just the stark nature of that is only visible when you interpret it in the psyche. You cannot see that otherwise. Okay. I don't know what else to say on this one. If you have any questions or comments, things you may want me to poke and prod at, I'm still working on the Genesis. I'm working on a video for the first monomyth, showing how that comes through. And I went through and I've got, I don't know, maybe a couple days worth of work, about an hour and 10 minutes worth of video. And you know what happens as I go through this stuff is I'll put something down I think is something here. And then as I get through the interpretation, I'm finding out and learning other things that allows me to back up and go, oh no, I was wrong on that. The entire video, I'm going to dump it and start over. It's a dynamic process when you keep reaching for this stuff. You're like, I don't get it. And then a couple days later, you're like, okay, now I get it. And then you reach more and it happens that way. It grows that way. You have to reach for it and then let it unfold. But anyway, that's what happens in the videos. They quickly become outdated. All right. Hope this was fun and interesting. And yeah, love one another. See you in the next video.